we have the pleasure today of the company of Stuart Whitby. I remember what you said to us. You were like, always like, oh, can we have a chat? And I'll never forget those lines. I did 17 big ones for murder.
Yeah. How do you rehabilitate yourself? How do you find any hope in a day when you're viewed as a predator or a dangerous person by those around you? You got to deal with all this stuff, and you go within, you start soul searching.
Straight Butt Radio, coming through on your wireless.
Well, let's intro this podcast, Derek.
Yeah, let's intro this podcast.
I'm going to turn this heater off. It is hot in here.
Before we all have a cry in here together, because there's probably a number of reasons why the bloke sitting in front of us could have had a few cries, and it would be pretty understandable. But I think we're about to find out a hell of a lot more about that and this legend, because we have the pleasure today of the company of Stuart Whitby. Now, Stu is a legend that we met out on a site visit at a point in time, Ed and I, and had quite a powerful connection, I would say. We were compelled to get Stu in and see if he wanted to share his story, because it was one hell of a unique scenario. But Stuart, welcome to the podcast studio, mate.
Yeah, thank you, Dan and Ed. I'm glad to be here, and it's warm in here, and it's
I've turned the heater off
morning.
now.
Thanks for the coffee as well, and looking forward to this.
It's warm in here. There's a bit of warm energy. You're wearing your warm-coloured faff, and you got it all going on, mate.
Yeah. As soon as I got back to Brisbane, I had my 3 shirts there, and I ripped them straight out, and I threw this one on, and I like it, and I'm going to get some more, definitely.
I threw this one on, and I like it. We'll have to get you to do a product review.
Yeah. Well, I definitely do need to get some more winter woolies, as they say, the hoodies, and more caps.
Sure. Yeah, mate, for sure. No, I really appreciate you coming in. Dan and I, we've reflected a lot on that chat we had that day to like you and the rest of the staff where you work, and it was because I remember when I was talking, because Dan always starts us off, gets halfway through, and then I sort of do the last bit. And I can remember looking around. I'm like often scanning the room to see like who's interested,
who gives a shit,
who gives a fuck, because it's often there's 90% don't give a fuck, which is understandable because the stuff we're talking about, not everyone's up for yet, which is cool. But when I was talking, I just remember seeing, like, I locked eyes with you as I was talking, and I was like, fuck, you were just like looking like straight through me. I was like, this guy is so engaged. I was like, this is incredible. Like what I'm saying here, I was like, this guy really gives a fuck.
Yeah.
And then after, when we finished and we handed those few things away, like you just came up to us and just like dropped your guard, and the way you sort of...
It was almost like an emergency situation, kind of, where you like, because I remember what you said to us. You were like, always like, oh, can we have a chat? I need to get something off my chest. And it was sort of like looking around. There are other people around there. I was like, well, is this a safe space? Yep. And it just poured out of you. And I'll never forget those lines. I did 17 big ones for murder.
Yeah. And
I know Ed and I both looked at each other, because we've had some conversations during the time of this business, but no one's come up to us with anything like that.
Yeah.
And I remember we didn't even talk. I think it must have been about 15 minutes, and you were just pouring your heart out. And it was like a physical expulsion of, like, you needed to get it off your chest. You hadn't necessarily had anyone to talk to about that stuff or felt comfortable to do it. And that was an opportunity, and we felt that. And we were touched. It changed us. It really did, didn't it?
Yeah. It was a powerful moment. Was it that for you? Because it might have just been us.
Yeah.
Listening to what you were talking about was resonating with me. And, being on shutdowns or remote work like that, it can take a toll on you, an emotional toll. And we'd already been through a bit. As you were saying, 90% of the people there were disengaged, but the 10% that were engaged, I was one of those, and I was right into it. I believe about helping people, and I know that we all go through a bit of a grind, not only in the workplace but in life. So you had me listening in. My journey through the workforce hasn't been an easy one. So I'd seen your shirts around. I didn't really know what they were about. I thought they were that big company's sort of program.
Yeah.
But when I saw that it was you two, I'm like, wow, it's even better. This makes it better for me to see that.
Yeah.
And then, to have a chance to just talk to you after you explain to me what yous are about and what drives you. I just thought, yeah, I need to tell these people this, because I hadn't told anyone else out there at that point about that. And I'd been bottling a lot of stuff up through the grind of the job. And I just felt that I just needed to let off some steam.
Absolutely. And I remember Dan and I, like, after you sort of finished telling us for like 10 or 15 minutes all this stuff, Dan and I just looked at each other and then looked at you and said, fuck, do you want to come on the podcast? Because this is exactly the conversations that we want to have, not just amongst ourselves, but among our community, you know, and bring these barriers down and allow people to show vulnerability. And I mean, there's a hell of a lot we're going to talk about today on a lot of different things, you know, that I don't think a lot of people quite understand. And I've even had insights this morning just chatting to you before the podcast, stuff that I never even thought about.
Yeah, we've learned about bronzing up.
About bronzing up as well. We will talk about that.
To paint the picture, though, before we went to that particular site, it's well known.
Nearly missed our fucking flight.
Yeah, we did nearly miss our fucking flight that day.
we were matter of 30 seconds. We were running down the ramp with no shoes on. We had our shoes in our hands because
It
was a nightmare. But we've obviously done a whole lot of, you know, one of our programs, we work with Restart, who are a social enterprise, and they basically upskill inmates, you know, in prisons outside of Brisbane, you know, with skills and that sort of stuff. And we use, you know, we upcycle shirts that we can't sell into products, you know, with the inmates in Berlin prison. We've been in there. And so this prison program has been something that we've been really proud of, and we've seen the impact of it, and we've had conversations with inmates about, you know, the positive nature of doing those programs. And we took up a whole lot of those products to the place where we met you, because we realised that story kind of connected with people as well. And obviously that day it specifically connected with you, because you've spent 17 years in prison.
Yes.
And you've seen it all.
Yep.
And I suppose that exact scenario there with those stories and those products and what we were doing on that side of things, that probably, aside from the mental health stuff, which you were probably already connected with, I think that might have just got it over the line for you.
Yeah, well, I once worked in a tailor shop for a short period of time in prison, and I know the environment, and I could imagine those people in there making that stuff, and, you know, how happy they'd be on their sewing machines and doing all this stuff and knowing that it's going for a good cause, and that would bring, you know, great meaning and purpose to them and to their day. And that's what you're trying to do to get through one day. And, and you're trying to give and get out of yourself just to get you through that one day. So programs like that are really priceless. And, you know, I suppose unless they come and tell you, we'll never really know what it means to each individual. But for them to be able to do something good in an environment that is harsh, that is, you know, punishing in a way, but that brings the restorative justice and reintegration aspect of it in there, and that opens the door for light and for hope and the good stuff that people in there are not thinking about. You know, maybe self-love, you know, it's a harsh environment, train hard, you know, eat fast, sleep, boom, boom, day, night, week after week, year after year, year after year. You know, it's like you don't get a chance to breathe. But when you do good things, you know, it brings that light, that love into your heart, and that's what you need. That's gonna carry you across the finish line.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I know Ed and I certainly from our time going into a Berlin prison,
it was an eye-opening experience.
Right inside, like not in the visitors' room, like in the guts of it, which not many civilians get to do, because, you know, you just don't. Like, it's the visitors' room or nothing, and to be in that world for a short period of time and to see it was, it was incredibly eye-opening. And you can see the benefit and you know, how much of an opportunity it is for these guys and how much it helps them get through a day.
It also changes your perspective on
it changes your perspective
what those people are going through in there.
Yeah. It changes your perspective, and we say this a bit, it changes your perspective when you go inside a prison into a sewing centre, having never been into a prison before, a high security prison, and there's scissors and sharp fucking shit everywhere, and, you know, you have those first thoughts, you're like, fuck, I'm in here. But you quickly realise it's no one gives a shit about doing any extra time for a couple of fucking dickheads like us.
With some stupid looking shirts.
Yeah, it's as soon as you open your mouth and start to talk, and you know, to these people, and you realise, oh, there's a human element here. In fact, it's all human, and people are just, you know, in here most of the time out of hard luck situations, and they've made mistakes, and mistakes happen in life. And
well, it allowed us to really show some, understand and give some empathy to those people, because majority of the time prison's like, oh fuck, they're all people that are fucked up, and just keep them there. You know what I mean? Fucking lock them up. No, you know. But when we were walking down like the corridors, and they must deliberately do it, but like it's obviously all concrete and steel, but then they had all the walkways and stuff were all was all meshed off, but then outside and between all the concrete and the steel was this beautifully manicured grass, like fucking some of the nicest grass I've seen, like as good as Parliament House grass. You know what I mean?
Lovely lawns.
And it was just such a weird thing to see, like the people that, like the inmates that weren't working in like the work restart program or Green Fox doing graphic design or whatever, they were just in a 6x6 concrete outside area, just walking up and back, touching the side, like the walls of the yard, and just walking up and back. I said to Helen, I was like, what are they doing? She's like, oh, they'll just do that all day.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else to do. Because if you're not doing the work restart program, you're just sitting around waiting for time to go by, which is like, it's very, very, very hard for me to still comprehend that, even by seeing it, let alone explaining that to someone else and being like, that's what's going on. You know, that's a hard reality.
Oh, yeah.
That's a fucking hard, that's a tough, tough life. And to think that we're trying to, well, I mean, I don't even know, but like you look at the prison system, it's like, I look at it and I'm like, we're trying to fix these people, right? Like we want them to come out and be better. But fuck, looking at that, it's like, that's not helping anyone. That's just going to build more hate and resistance to conforming. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's not sending people in the right direction. In my opinion, I don't know.
Mate, it's certainly an eye opener. It absolutely is. I think we should hear from the man himself.
Yeah, we should. We've just been talking the whole time,
mate. This guy's got,
Plenty.
how many years inside did you do, Stu?
Nearly 17.
Nearly
years.
17. Yeah, wow. I mean, why don't we just go from the start? Why don't you just take us to the start? Are you cool?
Yeah. Well, I was. I think the whole story started in Port Kembla. I believe that it did. I've spoken to my younger brother and my older brother when he was alive, and we believe and know that to be true, because growing up, we were just like your average kids growing up in southwest Sydney out in the bush, but we knew that our grandfather was someone important in the painters and dockers back in the day. We know he was associated with the mafia, and they went to his funeral. And
painters and dockers, explain to me. I don't exactly know. Are they like a bikie gang?
No, they were a waterfront union. They're no more.
Righto.
They were shut down or morphed into something else, and they basically controlled the waterfront.
Okay.
And that's all I really know, is that whatever came in or whatever went out, it didn't come in or go out without their say-so. And I know that my grandfather was driven around by bodyguards, armed guards. And,
wow.
And my dad said that if the police accidentally pulled him over, they said, sorry, Mr. Whitby, and sent him on his way.
And he was tied in with the mafia and everything.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Down in what is this, in Melbourne or Sydney?
In Wollongong, yeah.
South
of Sydney, Port Kembla.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
And I was born in Wollongong in 73 and lived in Reservoir Road at Port Kembla. So that was my first home there till I was about 5.
And what were your parents? What did they do?
My dad was a painter and docker.
Okay.
So on my birth certificate, my dad was 18 years old. He was a painter and docker, and my mum was a housewife.
Okay. Yeah, and you were saying, before we started the podcast that, it was a fair bit of, family domestic violence growing up, and your father was quite a hard man. Walk us through that. What did the home life look like for you growing up?
Look, my dad was an underground miner after he left the docks, and he played country football and was captain coach, and St. George Dragons chased him for 10 years straight, but he never went to the Dragons. He played rugby league against Great Britain and France for Southern Division, which is the old New South Wales country. So he knew all the NRL players, like from that era. His friends from school, some of them played in the NRL, and he was just a very, I suppose, he liked to drink. He trained hard. He worked hard, and he was just what's the word for it? He was very sterile, didn't show any emotion, really. But if my brothers or I slipped up, we'd cop one hell of a beating. Like, it would come out then.
And what's a slip up?
A slip up would be something different, like wrestling with your brother or fighting with your cousin or something like this. You know, just nothing too over the top for the general family, but for us, you know, I remember I was having probably my 7th birthday and had 10 mates over, and he was coming back from work one day, and I thought, my dad's here, run, hide. And we're all like, run. My friends are like, why do we have to hide? I'm like, that's how it was. You know, he was hard to be around.
Wow.
That's tough.
And what sort of beatings are we talking?
Yeah, they weren't just your average, jug cord across the back legs. They were knees and punches, and, you know, he took a block of wood to my younger brother's backside and leg, and, you know, sent my older brother to school with black eyes at primary school, and,
Oh, wow.
you know, just stuff like this, you know, and, yeah, it's not good. It's not right, but that's how it was.
And was your mother around at this time?
Yeah, that's just a part of it. That was normal in our household.
How much of an impact do you reckon that's had on who you were, you know, and who you've become? Like, how much of an impact that early childhood and those situations have had on you as a person?
Oh, massive, because as a young person, I was very vibrant. Like, I'm getting back to my, before.
Yeah.
And I was very optimistic, and I'd always help people. I mean, even in primary school, like, I think like first class and second class, I was a monitor, and I used to help my classmates and stuff. So I was looking out for those guys at a very young age. And I believe that self-esteem and things like that were basically beaten down, if not completely out of me at a very young age. So as I said, by the time I was about probably 15, 16, I was pretty well burnt out, washed up.
Yeah, you were saying that you're doing, obviously a lot more. You had to grow up quick, I suppose, would be sort of term for it.
Yeah.
So when you're 15, 16, and so like the big event, like the big, turning point that happened in your life, you're about 22, 23. So walk us through those years up until that event. Like what did it look like? Did you finish school? Did you finish high school?
I left school in year 9 and went to start a bricklaying apprenticeship. I didn't go too far with that.
Oh, fuck, mate. Good one to stop.
Yeah, I know.
Jeez, that's a tough gig. Fuck, bricklaying. Fuck, it's hard.
Yeah, so I got to start with my uncle's wife's dad. He was a Grenadier Guard at Buckingham Palace back in the day. Won apparently the Golden Trowel in the UK, and his bricklaying, blocklaying company was building the Hard Rock Cafe in Sydney. So that's where I was, building the Hard Rock Cafe, laying quarter blocks in door jambs, door frames, carrying 3-4 bags of concrete as a 15-year-old, lugging them around, and that was my introduction to the workforce.
That's probably as hard an introduction you could have as a 15-year-old in that trade. Like, that's full on, isn't it?
Yeah, and I was building the Hard Rock Cafe, and at lunch I used to buy a sandwich and climb up to the very top, and it was partially built, and there was like a quarter of a wall, and I'd sit right up the top and overlook as much as
perch yourself up there.
Yeah, look over the city and wonder, dream, I suppose, of what the future might bring.
Yeah, wow. And so how long did you do that for?
That was only for a couple of months, and he wasn't stable, the person that I was working for, and I don't even think he ended up completing that. He might have been kicked off or something. So from there I left there and went to build coal trailers, welding.
Yeah, okay, fabricating.
Yeah, fabricating.
So during this time, like during that middle period, when you've left school grade 9, like that's how many people leaving grade 9 now? Like, that's a big thing to do.
Yep.
And then up until, you were 22, 23. Who were the people that you were like looking up to, or the people you were surrounding yourself with? Because obviously your father, you're obviously distancing yourself from the family life. Like, who were the people you were hanging around with?
Well, I was basically hanging around friends from school, and some of them had tattoo studios, were apprentice tattooists and stuff. And no one was like major into anything bad or anything. They were just working, spending the working week, and on weekends drinking cartons of beer, smoking marijuana, and hanging around bonfires or fire pits and having barbecues. That was that was probably it.
So pretty innocent fun, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standard behaviour.
Yeah. Nothing hasn't happened before. Yeah, okay. And so I suppose want to get close to the event and walk through like your time away, because the event happened, and you spoke about it off air before, but like we don't have to go into the details of it, but like the night that happened, and once it had happened, it was over.
Yep.
Walk us through that. Like once it had taken place, what was the next thing? Like that next sort of half an hour, what did that look like?
After it had happened, I fled the scene and I was walking around, and it was early morning hours before the sun came up, and a realisation that I'd acted in a very violent way had overcome me. Like I'd taken my place to a place where I'd heard about, and I'd seen some wild stuff, but to actually be in that situation was it was horrifying. It was horrifying, and I don't know why I thought this, but as I was walking, I felt like I could see myself from 100 kilometres up into the sky, and saw myself as just this insignificant person walking around like on a Monopoly board type of thing. And then I was like, just in an instant I was thinking like this, like, what have I done? Like, what have you done? And how did I get to that point? And there was there was a lot of emotion there. And I went and handed myself in. I didn't know what the outcome would be. Then I was eventually met by the police, the detectives, and arrested, and reality of the whole thing started to sink in.
When you were walking around, and you said, I suppose that's a bit of almost like an out of body experience, maybe. Did you realise at that point the gravity of what you'd done, and that someone's life has been ended?
Yeah, well, I didn't think that might have been the case outright, but I felt that it was the case, but I was hoping that it wasn't, trying to believe the best in a situation like that, and just knowing that your future's gone, there's going to be consequences here that are far...
Was it just a hollow feeling? Was it just like a numbness? Was it just, like I'm trying to figure out, like, because obviously it would have been like, you would have been so, like...
You'd go through every range of emotion.
Yeah.
You'd have the shock, you'd have the fear, you'd be scared, you'd be fucking
and I was
angry.
shaking.
Yeah, you'd be absolutely everything.
It was all coming out, and I broke down a few times, and then just before the detectives come to collect me, I just basically emotionally collapsed, and I suppose all the trauma, I suppose, everything that I'd experienced in my life up to that stage actually came out. It's just a real pity and a shame that it couldn't come out somewhere else.
And is that
event didn't have to occur?
Is that how you feel about it? That maybe like after that moment in time, a lifetime of 22 years of life that had been building up behind you had just kind of almost unraveled or spewed out. Like,
yeah, I do. I do agree that with that, and I know myself well these days, and I know that is the case. I know that that's how it was with me. It wasn't just this happened in this instant or that happened in that instant, because I know for the most part I'm a generally kind, caring, good person. I mean, I'm bound by morals and ethics like all of us. We all have that inbuilt and ingrained into us. But I do know that I actually fully dumped my whole life out emotionally.
And so what year was this?
1997.
1997.
Fuck, that's a long time ago, isn't it?
Yeah, it is it is a fucking long time ago. And I think about that conversation that we had.
4.
But that's where I went to, because that's immediately where I went to. Was like, wow, what was I doing in 1997? Okay, I was in grade 2 at school. Yeah. fucking crapping my dacks. You know what I mean? Like, and then in that time, what had my life looked like? What have I done? And then I compare that to that amount of time where, you know, your life has just not stopped, but taken a fucking pretty significant change in direction. And the stuff that you must have been through, you know, in that time, and the process, the transformation, or the, you know, the self-discovery and the stuff that you would go through, but also the pain and the anguish and all the emotions that you must feel.
And the regret.
Oh, yeah, the regret. And, you know, like, there's some things you can fix. Like, if you decided today that I'd done the wrong thing there, let's make amends. Let's throw 110% effort in there. Let's even get our friends to help us. Yeah, let's get a project going. Let's fix that. Some things can't be fixed. And then you have to deal with that.
And how hard is it to deal with something like that? Like, how often does it play back in your mind, or when you're incarcerated, like playing back in your mind, being like, fuck, if only I just did this, or if I hadn't stayed there, or if I had, you know, like, how much did that play back on your mind?
Oh, so much, like every day. It was like, if I could go back and talk to a younger Stuart, or if I could go back and just go, why didn't you just walk in there and say I needed help? Why? And that's I can't tell why I was so, I suppose, emotionally isolated, but that's where I wound up in. Yeah, I was moving around, but the communication basically was shutting down.
And how much how hard do you need to work to not let that consume you? Because that could easily just eat you up, and that would just fuck you for the rest of your days. Like, how hard was it for you to work past that consuming you?
Oh, look, I'll be honest, it near killed me 100 times. It is that much of a big thing. When you have done damage and you can't fix it, when you've caused grief and you can't comfort it, it doesn't get more serious than that. And then you've got to deal with that within yourself, because you're alive, you're going forward, or you hope to go forward. How do you rehabilitate yourself? How do you find any hope in a day to get through a day when you're not getting visits, when it seems that no one around you cares, when you're just another person that done this, when you're viewed as a predator or a dangerous person by those around you who don't want to get close to you because, look, if we upset this guy, we could be
the next.
The next. You know, you got to deal with all this stuff. And I suppose you go within, you start soul searching.
How much do you reckon you'd change? Like, 97 it happened, and like obviously you would have been put away until your trial and everything.
Yeah.
When you were found guilty and went to prison full time, you're like, righto, I'm in here now. How much did your mindset change, or your demeanor change from when you first started to when you came out? Nearly 17 years later. Like, were you an angry, fuck the world person when you went in, or were you, I've made a massive mistake, how can I fix this?
Look, I was the first part there. I knew I'd made a massive mistake, and I was looking at how I'm going to fix this, and I was also asking myself, do I deserve a chance? Do I deserve to be fixed? Am I capable of it? Am I damaged goods? Is there something wrong with me? All these things were running through my mind. So I basically had myself under a period of review and assessment till I could understand where I was going. And that it's crazy to look back on how I was reviewing myself, but that's basically how it was.
And because you can't really, like, you talk about, like, how hard it is in there for people to show emotion and vulnerability, because obviously it's like a, lack of a better term, like dog eat dog type world in there. It's like a pack mentality, and if you're the weak link, then you're fucking going to be in trouble, right? So how hard is it to mask your emotions, but also try and find some inner soul searching to be able to show emotions in the right areas, you know what I mean, as you're progressing your way through your time, so you can actually make some positive changes within yourself? Like, how hard is it to be those two people at pretty much the same time?
Well, for me, I had a couple of people come up to me early on in the piece, people that had been in a long time, and one of them came up to me and he basically said, well, the good part is that you're young, and I don't think you're going to do this amount of time easy, if indeed you will ever progress further. But I believe that because of your age, there is hope, he said to me. And he left it at that, and I never ever spoke to that person again. He was an old Indigenous man, and he said that to me, and it stuck with me the whole time. I held on to that. So,
wow, that's fucking cool, isn't it? Yeah, and he would never know.
No, he came up to me and he said those words to me, and there was nobody else saying anything to me. They wouldn't come near me, and he just approached me in the middle of the unit.
I'll just put that.
Yeah, he just came to me in the middle of the unit and just looked me in the eyes. He was like, a foot across from me, and he says, the good part of all this is that you're young, and he said, I don't think you'll do this easy. But he said, I think you'll come out, and that was heavy.
So let's talk about the time, because obviously, yeah, as
What
Ed
was
said,
what were you sentenced to time-wise?
I was sentenced to 13 years parole with around 17 years on the top. So I did 2 years past my parole date, which is nobody really gets it first go. They want to see how you react. You know what I mean? It's a process, and they do not want to release people that are going to cause any more.
they're testing you as well. Like they want to,
yeah,
for sure.
they're testing.
So you've gone, 97, obviously, you've obviously committed a crime, you've been locked up, and then the time between getting locked up on the morning after to when your trial was, how long was that?
It was about 2 years.
2 years. So just sort of 2 years, you're kind of, in that 2 year period, that initial 2 year period before your trial, I'm sure there's a whole lot of, that for 2 years you would have been like, what the fuck is going to happen to me? You know what I mean? In that time you would have been like, because I'm sure there's lawyers, there's dates that are thrown out, for certain things to happen. Shit gets delayed and pushed back. 2 years of just, wow, not really knowing what your future holds.
Yeah, well, it was a very difficult 2 years, and I wound up on observations a couple of times where people, guards, counsellors would, because a lot of people were, in hindsight now, looking after me, even though I mightn't have thought it at the time. They definitely were, and because I was young, and they would call counsellors down, and they just regularly had someone coming to speak to me, and that actually really helped me. And I had chaplains regularly coming to see me, and that's what got me through that period of time. But a number of times through that first 2 years waiting period, I'd be taken out of my unit and put under observation for 24 hours for a couple of days, just to make sure that I didn't do anything to myself.
Okay. So was that is that observation, they mean that you're at risk of self-harm?
Absolutely.
Okay, righto. And did you feel that? Did you feel that you were a risk to yourself?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it was a challenge I faced daily.
Yep.
And to see what was going on around me as well, and to be in an environment like that, where that thing is happening a lot, it was very difficult.
What kept you alive, do you reckon?
That's the funniest thing. Well, it's not funny, but it is a funny thing because I don't know, because for a period of time, all hope was completely lost, and I was just alive, eating food, playing some touch football. Well, I suppose just looking to the next visit from a counsellor or a chaplain kept me alive.
And I guess when you say that it felt like no one was there for you, no one was looking out for you, but in hindsight, maybe they were. I suppose there's that element with it being in prison where no one wants to be seen as being favoured, or no one sort of wants to be seen favouring anyone else, because that can have consequences in its own right inside. Is that right?
Absolutely, because there definitely was occasions where it looked like I was being favoured, and I absolutely was. I was being looked after.
Mm. And is that a bad thing to happen? As in, obviously it's good for you, but bad in regards to...
Oh, I think jealousy,
yeah,
and spite, and just inherent nastiness can be jealous of somebody that looks like they're getting preferential treatment. But these individuals saw in me what I was starting to see in myself, and they thought, we should help Stuart. He's got a future. He's got a chance here. And they obviously cared about human life as well. It wasn't just me as an individual; they were doing it for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And so after that 2-year period, then your trial comes up. How was that process?
Yeah. Well, I had to go to court a few times, and it eventually came down to it. I pled not guilty and went all the way, but if you understand the law, it gets down to technicalities. And
because murder and manslaughter, obviously that's where the middle ground you would have been, right?
Yeah, but because the individual who I was with, the young lady, I walked her to the door but didn't leave the premises. And although I was awoken at 3 a.m. in the morning and it was all, I suppose, over within about 10 minutes, they said that was enough time for it to be premeditated. So it was right on the cusp of going another way altogether. So there's been a lot of conversation had to me by a lot of people about that over the years, but I'll accept what's happened and I'm not going to challenge it or, it's just something I've got to deal with and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you go through that scenario and then you're sentenced and you get your time, I suppose. What happens at that point, like for you mentally, once you know what's ahead of you?
Well, when I returned back from court, they grabbed me again and put me under obs because they thought for sure at that point if this person's gonna,
if he's gonna take his life,
it'll be now.
Now will be the time, and you're 24 at this time.
Yeah, so they put me away again. I think for 7 days on obs.
Fuck, 24's young.
And yeah, I didn't know what to think. I just knew that there was a number of years that were placed there in concrete, so to speak, that I had to deal with. And it was all too much and I couldn't even focus on the longevity of it. So I basically just got up and dusted myself off because there was no other option but to keep living and go forward regardless.
But I mean, obviously you don't just pick yourself up and dust yourself off like, the next day. Obviously there's a fair amount of time and a lot of contemplation. And what was the number? So what was the number in your head at that point in time that you had ahead of yourself in years that you had accepted, I've got at least this amount of time ahead of me here?
Oh, I thought I had at least 15 years.
15 years.
But I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking that is there no life here anymore? I was thinking, is this it forever? And it was... I remember sleeping in my cell and just wrapped up, I suppose, like a baby, just in the fetal position there, just wrapped up and wrapped my head up and, wrapped the blanket around my eyes so only my nose stuck out and just try and block that world out, just block everything.
Hide away.
Yeah, just hide away.
And in a physical sense, you're cocooned, I suppose, in a cell like that, trying to block things out, but there's a whole ecosystem, if you will, or that's not the right word, but there's a whole lot of, people living around you. And in that environment, you've got, a lot of yahooing and, noise and fights and all this kind of stuff. And it's all around you. Like you're hearing that life around you. Like, what's that like?
Well, you do. You hear the screams and you hear people explode in their cells and just destroy them.
Probably crying, like people just sobbing.
Yeah, you do hear people sobbing. And then you hear some people laughing and you can hear from other units like mini riots going down and all manner of drama and medical emergencies 24 hours a day, people being taken to the clinic and all aspects of that.
And how far into your sentencing was it when your brother passed away?
I'd been in about 10 years.
Okay.
At the point that my brother passed away, yeah.
And that you were telling us he'd gotten out of was it Goulburn? Did you say he got out of Goulburn?
Yeah.
And he passed away within sort of 24 hours. And you got a phone call, and just run us through how that all unfolded for you.
Well, I was talking to my dad on the phone, and I was, I knew my older brother was in prison. I'd written him a couple of letters and was hoping to help him, and yeah, it's funny, I was in prison and I'm trying to help my brother who's in prison, but that's where I was at. I was just trying to help him, I was worried about him. I did have a feeling that something, wasn't right. And my dad said he's getting out of prison tomorrow. We're going to pick him up. And then I thought, okay, so, I was excited and I went to sleep in my cell and woke up the next day and went to ring my dad up and rung my dad up. And I said, hi, Dad, is Craig there? And he started just talking and avoiding the subject. And then he burst into tears and I just knew straight away. I had no doubt no one needed to say one word to me. And then my dad's friend took the phone over and I said, Craig, he's dead. And that guy said, yeah. And I was just standing there in an exercise yard with 50 other people, just with tears streaming down my eyes, and I got wild. I was furious. I was so angry. I mean, I was upset, but I was angry.
What were you angry at?
I was angry at because I believe that my dad and my dad's friend didn't look after him. And then I found out later that they definitely didn't. I mean, my brother got out of prison and apparently they bought him some tobacco and a bottle of alcohol and some stuff like this. And apparently he'd become addicted to morphine or some other medication. And I didn't know him to be an IV drug user, but he needed some medication and they wouldn't get it for him. So apparently he went to some drug dealer in some caravan park to get whatever it was that he got. And just the whole story with me was horrifying. And there my brother was dead.
So less than 24 hours outside of prison, overdosed.
Yep, they found him on the kitchen floor at about 10 a.m. down Wollongong, frothing at the mouth and dying on the kitchen floor.
That's and so you get that news, and then obviously, understandably, you're incredibly emotional, and you got 50 other guys around you in prison, and that they're the closest people to you physically at that point in time. Like, what happens there?
Well, I basically just had to wipe the tears up, keep looking at the wall, and just remain quiet. And then I hung up and I was shaking, and that's when I said I felt like my soul had been removed from me. It just was like a mortal blow had been inflicted upon me, and I was shaken up. Like, I wasn't just emotional, I felt physically ill. And so I started walking around some laps inside the unit, and someone come up to me and said, are you okay? And I said, my older brother's passed away. And instead of saying, oh, I'm sorry about that, they used jail slang for saying that he's dead. What is brown bread? And I swear I could have struck this bloke down. I tell you, I could have, if it wasn't for the fact that I was so, I suppose, upset and not in my, not feeling 100%.
Using the term brown bread, he's just like completely made light
Fobbed
of
off.
the fact that
just nothing.
You've lost one of your best mates.
Yeah, my brother's dead, and it's nothing to me, mate. Go tell someone else.
Yeah,
and that made me that angry because I thought,
and isolated probably.
Yeah, I thought, here I am in an environment like this and I cannot even share this emotion, this grief with anyone.
And so that, I can't imagine what that would have been like. But that starts to tap into this idea of what emotions can you express? What can you share in an environment like that? When something like that happens, because my image or my idea would be that there'd be an element of brotherhood almost, in prison.
Camaraderie.
Where we're like, and there's other people who have lost family members and they've, out of their control, you know what I mean? I would have thought there'd be an element of sort of rallying around you, but it doesn't sound like that was the case.
No, it wasn't. And, talking about favouritism again or something like that, I ended up speaking to a counsellor, and for some strange reason I ended up talking to the general manager because they do inspections around the place, hygiene inspections, like unit inspections every week. And you have to do an extra special clean and make sure everything's like polished up. And I ended up chatting to the general manager and found favour with them. And they took a shine to me, and it actually helped me. I started to progress. A bit of a spotlight of attention got put on me. At that point, I'd been like a grey man, invisible in that 50-man unit. But at this point, I started to stand out with the way I suppose I dealt with that, and I started to actually progress.
And what does a progression look like? So this is the general manager of the prison. What prison are we talking?
We're talking about Capricornia.
Capricornia, yeah, righto. Where's that?
Rockhampton.
Righto. And so when you find favour with the general manager of a prison, like what does that look like? Does that mean you start to get privileges, or you get, yeah?
Yeah, privileges come, and they don't come on that general manager saying, hey, progress this person, because they can't do things like that. It just means that if your unit officers, you usually have 3, if they see the general manager taking an interest in you, one of them might go, oh, I wonder what all that's about. And then they spoke to me. And then rapport just started to develop, whereas really up to that point, I hadn't had a lot to do with the guards, really. Yeah, I mean, if you see the general manager, everyone sort of says hello, like almost saluting them, You want to be on good terms with the general manager, and also sentence management and your unit officers. You don't want to cause them grief, because that will seriously cause you grief. But, just a bit of a positive sort of door opens. And
this was about 10 years in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is after your brother passed away.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And so what is your... I'm going to be honest, you come across to me like a protector. Like you've got this kind of vibe, and some of the stories that you've kind of shared with us, you seem to have that real protector nature, or that sort of helper, protector, provider scenario. Would you agree?
Yeah, I believe so, and even more so now than ever. Like, I only seek to help other people. I mean, I don't even comprehend material possessions or this and that, you know what I mean?
Well, I suppose your perspective completely changes. Yeah, completely changes. And having gone away for that amount of time, obviously things you take for granted before, or that we all take for granted, you don't. What like, how did you develop your personality through that time in prison? And what were some of the experiences that kind of changed you inside?
Shaped you,
Like, because you would have seen some fucking crazy shit. You would have seen, obviously violence, death. I'm sure there would have also been a lighter side at times, glimpses of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk us through that kind of stuff.
Well, it's so funny that prisoners can be very funny. Like, I'm talking crazy funny, because
you'd need to be.
Oh, well, they got nothing to hide. I mean, we're all basically naked before each other, even though we're wearing uniforms, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing to hide. I mean, someone farts over there, you're going to smell it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone cries at night, the next day. Someone has a bad phone call, I think that just silly things like we're in a unit, and we could cook our own food. This is before they took the kitchens away and have a central kitchen hub. So we're cooking our unit's food, and someone started making animal noises, and we're all making animal noises. And this one lad made a rooster noise, and he made this rooster crow so real that we laughed so bad. I mean, we were cramping up and had tears coming down our eyes. And this one bloke fell off a chair, and the guards ran in and thought someone had knocked him off his chair. And just funny things like that. And you see weird things as well, or you hear weird things, and you laugh,
I suppose that helps get you through. Of course, it helps get you through.
Yeah, but playing sport as well. If you exercise or play sport, you usually find like-minded people, and they're pretty positive types. Like, there I am serving all this time, but people are coming in doing 1 week, 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, and I'm meeting these people, and they're coming past me and saying g'day. I'm getting to know them, and they're going. They're all coming in from different walks of life, different experiences, different trades, different sporting backgrounds, and I'm spending time with all these individuals and then going. That in itself refreshed me, and I was always learning something new.
Did you make, this could be a weird question, but did you make like lifelong friends in there that they've come out and that you're like mates with now?
Look, if there's a couple of people that I have bumped into, and these people were in a similar situation than me, and I wouldn't view them, I don't view them as a prisoner or as some ex-criminal. I know these people are very trustworthy, that care about people, and they're doing the best that they can. But yeah, I did have an affinity with some people, and I would say that if I met them today, I would say they're friends.
Yeah.
I'm not hanging around with anyone. I don't know anyone.
Which is a really weird concept in itself, because you've spent there's probably people that you spent your whole tenure with. Like, there were people in there from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And you may never see those people fucking ever again.
Yeah.
Which is like another harsh reality, because it's like the whole Shawshank thing, where it's like, that's your, because you were almost in there as long as
That's
you'd
your
been
entire
alive up
world.
until the, you know what I mean? Like you're nearly most of your young adult life was spent in that area. And to think that you would have made some amazingly close connections, and you would have had that one bloke, you know what I mean? That was your mate, and every day you'd fucking sit down and have dinner with him or lunch, or you'd work out, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you may never see those people again.
No, and I was only thinking about that in the last couple of weeks as well, because for a period of time I was at one prison and there was a number of individuals in there, only a small group, probably about 10 people, and you wouldn't find these people. Like, how would these 10 individuals meet at this one place, converge there with that sort of work ethic, that sort of wisdom in their mind's eye? Yeah, they're all behind bars, but people capable of great things in the community, like with true potential. But for that many to be in the one place, I've never seen that. And sometimes I wonder where those people are to this day. And I have heard that one has passed away, and some aren't faring so well, but I believe that some are doing great.
And that must be, there's all like an element of, when I get out, I'll give you a call. Oh, what's your phone number? I don't have a phone. Or, well, like, how do I get in contact? Well, I don't fucking know. Like, I don't know what my next move is.
Yeah.
Like,
Because it's literally like being born again. Like, you've just got to come back out and start all over again, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember I was walking across roads and I had no comprehension of speed of vehicles and near got hit.
Yeah, so talk us through, like, that was sort of where I was going with these questions. Like, your parole date came up. Like you were saying, parole never happens the first time. Did you set yourself up mentally because you knew that wouldn't happen? Or did you have some sort of hope to think, fuck, I could get out here?
Yeah, no, I believed because I knew myself how I'm being weighed up is, their prerogative.
Yeah.
Or, their role. But I believe that, what I had learned is, you always have a go, and that,
in your heart of hearts, you're like, fuck, I'm a very good chance of getting out here because I know I'm reformed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how hard was it to get a no and another 2 years in there? Was it as hard as the beginning?
In a way, it was actually a good thing.
Okay.
It was actually a good thing because I went back and reviewed everything that I'd done. And at that point, because I was a peer support worker, like an inmate counsellor, I would get notifications off the psychologists like every Monday. They would say, okay, Tuesday, I need you to help this inmate type up his parole letter. On Friday, I need you to go to the clinic to talk to this person that's on OBS, suicide watch. So I had all these jobs to do each week in amongst my work and activities. That actually helped me. I got knocked back, but in helping them, I reviewed all my own application and expanded on it. And I basically did all these different plans, almost like educational plans from scratch, and went to great depth at them.
Wow.
And
that's cool.
Yeah, so when I hit second time around,
You presented that to them.
Yeah, and at the end of the process, it was extended. And then they wanted more information, so I went back and I did more education and more plans, and then I went through again, and then it looked like I honestly believed a week before I'd heard. I was walking around a tennis court having a cup of tea, and I just believed that I was getting out. I was going to be free. And people were coming up to me and saying, you got it, didn't you? You got it, you're going. I'm like, no, I haven't heard a thing. But I was shining, and I believed that I was going.
Yeah, wow. So it really is...
Geez, that must be a fucking wild feeling.
Yeah, but from what it sounds like to me, like, it truly is an example of rehabilitation. Like, it's by the effort that it sounds like you've gone to, and the role that you then played as a peer support worker, and finding that sense of purpose, in that world. It really does sound truly like a complete transformative process.
And did people have a level of respect in-house, like other inmates, like a level of respect for what you'd done?
Yeah, and for the most part, yes, but some people no. Some people, again, hate what you're doing. They hate what you stand
But they're the
for.
people that will never reform because they can't accept what they've done, right?
That's
And nothing can change until you can accept you fucked up.
yeah.
And they don't want to see other people succeed in an
Absolutely.
environment.
Well, it's the same
where-
thing as real life. Anyway, yeah, it's just in a different area. So talk us through the day you got out.
Oh, the day
What did that look like?
The day I got out, my godfather, who got in touch with me after my dad passed away, he was a miner, an under manager, an electrician, and he got in touch with me, and he went to my dad's funeral, and he promised my dad that he would get in touch with me. He come and visited me for a few times, and he was the one that came to pick me up with my godmother. It was so weird, but a couple of days before I was released, there was an incident in the prison, so the prison was locked down. So I didn't have to walk around and say goodbye or deal with any of this stuff. I could just work on myself. So the morning I got out, I packed up 3 boxes, put them on a trolley and wheeled them up. Some people were banging on doors and windows trying to wave to me in this, but I didn't want to turn back. I didn't want to look back, and I didn't look back. I walked up to the top, and the officers, the guards, made me a coffee. I drank that down. Then they walked me up, and I signed a bit of paper. They gave me 3 sheets of paper, took me into an airlock, a vehicle airlock, and the roller door came up. And there I was, free. I couldn't believe it.
Fuck. That must have... And were they giving you stuff that you'd given, like that you had to hand in, like 16 and a half years before?
What did you wear?
Some Christian friends from Sydney actually sent me up some clothes because I wound up being in contact with quite a few people, and they bought me some brand new Nike shoes and shorts and a shirt. And
Fresh set of Nikes.
yeah, they sent that to me.
Step it out in style.
Yeah, they sent that to me, and
Oh, man.
and I walked out there into the car park, and then Gary and Debbie came around, and I couldn't believe it. We walked over to the car, and then I just broke down. I couldn't move. I was crying. I was pretty upset. They were crying.
Fuck, I'm fucking emotional.
Yeah, I can't imagine the and yeah, back to full circle where we started about having a fucking teary. Like that shit just comes out of you. Like,
Oh, man, to think that hell was literally over, even though it was quite positive in the end, hell for me was over. And I was out there and I was free. And it was amazing. I just could not believe that I'd gotten there. And it was like that the amount of time went like in the blink of an eye. It was so crazy.
And you were 40 when you came. Were you 40?
39.
Fuck, you went in there as a 22-year-old and you came out 39. Far out. That is just so hard to comprehend. It's so hard to comprehend, isn't it?
yeah, it's fucking insane. You said that you found you turned to God at a point in time when you were inside as well, because you mentioned that, and I feel like we might have missed that part of that time inside, because you did mention that, you know, some Christian friends of yours sent some clothes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, when I was a Christian when I was a young fella. I was a member of the Boys Brigade and stuff. We used to wear uniforms and go play sport and do all this stuff. But I'm not from a Christian family, or I don't have a church background, but I just knew Christian people were good people. You know, they were non-judgmental and helping me. And they were the people in the end that supported me pretty much through the whole thing. That's where I learnt to play guitar in prison and write songs and do all that stuff. And
Wow. And so what do you do on the day that you get out? Like what do you actually do?
Did you go get
like
Macca's or something?
Yeah. like
no, I had no idea. They drove me, went to the shops and they bought a chicken and some coleslaw and some rolls. And then we went back to their home, and there was my bag with my clothes and stuff from that long ago. It was like going through a time capsule. It was unbelievable.
why was that bag there? Did you bring it from?
Yeah, I carried it out.
You carried it out. You had your bag, but you hadn't been through it. You just carried it out, and it was there.
Yeah, and things that people had sent me while I was in there, like letters and things that I weren't allowed to have, and
really?
Little things.
You're not allowed to have letters.
Some things are like laminated photographs. Some things you can't have,
righto.
and things like that.
Yeah. So did it sort of, and it probably wasn't like this, but did it sort of feel like it was the day after you went in? Did it feel like you went in there at 22 and it felt like it had been a day, and now you were back and you were back where you were? Does that make sense?
It seemed like that because the intensity of it, just the emotional ordeal that you've been through for such a long period of time, it's hard to fathom what you've actually seen and experienced. And even when I think back, it was a tough journey, and it's a hard journey, and you have to self-motivate. You have to believe, or you'll be lost in the cracks. You'll get bowled over and you'll vanish. The good that I did in there, no one can ever take away from me. I've saved lives. The amount of good work that I've done. I got letters from people's aunties. I know that I've saved guards from the most violent attacks, if not worse, inmates as well. Just being a positive person in someone's depression or what they're going through has helped them. Bereavement counselling that I did for individuals in there. I'll never know the full extent of the good work that I did, but I believe and know that I've helped a lot of people remain alive. Which is, mate, it's a feather in your cap, and it's something that, you can hold on to that and know that you've made that positive impact after the stuff that you've done. Yeah. Just fucking great.
And the thing is like people never will know, really. Like people will never know that, like, we'll never know. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like we weren't there, you were there. And I guess the good thing is it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like no one has to know, as long as you know in your heart of hearts the good that you've done and the genuine sort of attitude to helping and reform and this kind of stuff. That's probably laid a foundation for you to excel in, your new life outside of prison, which is decades apart. Yeah. And I mean, that's the other thing. I mean, like, the world changed in that amount of time a lot. Yeah. Like, I'm thinking, 97. I'm thinking
97, internet wasn't even really a thing in 97.
2000, we had the Y2K bug that was going to take down fucking everything. Yeah. And from that point on, Sydney Olympics.
Great time.
September 11, fucking iPhones, like technology. You must have just come out. And I guess you see this from inside prison.
Yeah, did you know about all this other stuff?
Like you get TVs and stuff.
Yeah, TVs. I remember waking up one morning and seeing 9/11, and I was in shock. I was traumatised seeing that on the television. I remember that one. I watched the Olympics on television and most other things because you can get newspapers and you do have televisions. I think everyone gets televisions now, but
you would have seen the bloody the Benji Marshall flick pass in the 2005 Grand Final.
Yeah,
Tigers.
I saw that, and I seen the Dragons win in 2010. I think it was.
Yeah,
and I was
2010. I think it was.
I'm like, yes.
Yeah, Dragons, man, are you?
Yeah.
Tough day for you blokes yesterday.
Oh, I can't believe it. The quarantine drama and
what a show that was.
Oh, give me $300,000 a year. I'll be a good boy. Yes, coach. What do you want me to do? I'll be home.
Well, how hard was it for you, with all those changes that happened in the world while you're incarcerated, how hard was it for you to come back into society with all those changes that had happened and for you to accept the world had changed dramatically in 17 years?
Reintegration has been very difficult. I was told it would be hard and I said, no, it'll be fine. I've been through worse, but no, it's very challenging. I found this phraseology that I say I'm like societally displaced, and what I mean by that is why people of my age cohort have been out there in careers and have they've had a stable income and they've got super and they've been married and they've had kids. I'm like, here I am, I don't have any of this, and now I've been out 8 years and I'm 47 now, and I have met a lovely lady, and she's the same age as me, and I won't have kids, but that's okay because her kids can be my kids. Any kid in society can be my kid. I can care about them. I can, you know what I mean? And that's the way I've weighed it all up, that a good person in society, everyone younger than you is like your daughter or your son, or older than you, your father or your mother. And that's the way I view things.
That's a really awesome perspective. Yeah, that's really cool, because I mean, I suppose what you're saying is that everyone in society has a responsibility to care for and look out for those around them when they have the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
I suppose,
powerful.
and I suppose finding your place in the world again, it's probably not over. You still are finding your way along, right?
Absolutely. Like I've nearly found, like I can find jobs all day long, but I'm trying to find an industry that I can fit into and that I can develop and progress into. And I found that about 12 months ago, but lost it. And then I recently found another one, but didn't get that position either. So I just have to keep believing that a door will open for me. And it's not easy because I believe I'm like burning daylight in the workforce because of the age of me now, you know. But I've still got fresh eyes and I'm still a hard worker. But, you know, to be 47 and going onto a jackhammer, it's not going to work.
But mate, that's probably not where your true strengths lie now. Do you know what I mean? Because I mean, what they reckon it takes 10 years to become an expert at anything, and you've spent 17 years. Probably a good part of that was finding yourself. But then probably once you sort of found yourself inside, you've spent a large amount of time honing a different kind of craft, and that's probably one of, like you talk about, that caring for other people, bit of mentoring, bit of, you know, sort of looking out, protecting, that kind of stuff. And so, you know, that's probably where your future lies, because you don't go through an experience like that and come out as sort of enlightened as what you are for nothing. Do you know what I mean? And I think you probably know that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Believe that. And I've been mulling over some things, and I'd like to go in the direction of like workforce mentoring, like performance coaching. I don't need to tell everyone my story, but I can tell them the insights and you know, help people in that way. You know, obviously, you know, we're passionate about people, you know, self-harming. We don't want that to happen, but we're also passionate about the full sphere of the whole thing. And we're talking domestic violence. We're talking sedentary lifestyle. We're trying to help people to become whole here. And then that's going to benefit all of us and definitely themselves.
Absolutely. I want to, you know, we talked a little bit before, you know, about your, you know, religious beliefs and, you know, that you're a Christian. Walk us through that, because, like, how much of an impact has that had on shaping who you are now?
Well, when I was in Capricornia and my brother passed away, that could have gone either way at that point. I was so upset and I was so angry. Being in that place, not being able to share and at least get some empathy from the people that were nearest to me. I just felt that, because I've been reading my Bible and talking to chaplains, and I just believed that I had to, this is in the Bible, it says, you know, walk in the Spirit. You must live in the Spirit. I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, it just means that you have to become better than your own, I suppose, thoughts, what you think's right, what you think's wrong, what is true here. You know what I mean? You know, there's like two sides to every story, and then there's the truth. I thought, well, you just got to go with the truth, walk in the Spirit. And what I meant by that was, no matter what situation was coming at me, I wouldn't respond in, I suppose, a physical sense with negativity, whether it was verbal or definitely physical. But that's how I started overcoming. That's how I really started moving forward, because I believed that God was going to open doors. I believed that there was a force bigger than myself. Once I believed in that, my problems here didn't really seem that big anymore. And then I met other people in there that were thinking and walking that journey out too. And that's that, in an environment like that, I believe that was, I suppose, the winning edge, you could say.
And it's a guiding light and something that we've talked about it before on this podcast. It's sort of like the religious, the element about religion that seems to make the most impact for people is that you're not at the top of the tree.
Yeah.
You know? And that's like, I think that's how I view it anyway. It's like when you're not putting yourself at the top, then you've got someone to answer to that's bigger than yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and prayer. Like, I mean, when you think you haven't got a life, or it doesn't look like you got a life, to pray and believe someone's hearing you. That's all I had. That's all I had in these cells. That's all I had for year after year, is that. You know what I mean? And that for me was powerful. You know, when I basically said, you've made these choices, this has happened, then I basically became a Christian, which means you give your heart to Jesus Christ and make him your Lord and Saviour. That to me was like the finishing and the start of me as a whole new person. And I'm not perfect, no one ever will be, and I'll never be perfect, and I can't change the past. But at least from today, even here to whatever else I do for the rest of my day, I can still believe that I'm trying to be the best, and that's what's working for me.
And make positive change and be a better person, I suppose.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Which is fucking cool.
And having a belief in the bigger picture, like having just that belief, and I suppose that's one of the big things that you hang on to with the, on the religious side of things, is just a belief that there is a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that that there is more for you out there, and that, the path that you are on may or may not be predetermined, but, it's with that power of belief, that there is more for you. You can almost create that future.
Absolutely, I feel that. I feel that even coming in here and talking to you this morning, like we've touched on so many different things, and I believe it.
But that's not the end of the story.
Not at all.
Because
not at all.
Because they threw you back inside.
Yeah, they threw me back inside.
So
let's go through that.
Well, I thought it was all over, and there I was in far north Queensland, working in the shutdowns.
So timeline-wise, so you're out in 2015. The roller door opened.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was working labour hire contracting in Brisbane for every company under the sun in Brisbane. I've worked on Gateway Upgrade North, Qantas Hangar 2 refit. I've worked at South Bank. I've worked in all the CBD high-rises for various companies, Ipswich Motorway. I've been a stevedore at the Port of Brisbane, a wharfie. I've worked on Spitzer tugboat shutdowns here, done all this stuff trying to land a permanent job. And then I thought, it's not working out for me here. Let's go North Queensland and give mining a crack, and got shutdowns at Hay Point, out on the water there on Shiploader 1, Shiploader 2. And so I'm thinking, I'm out here earning good money, but let's try and get a permanent mine job in production because, that's what I was trying to do, get into where I could be a part of digging the coal out, whether underground or above. So I got a traineeship as a technician, reliability technician. I was meant to start on the Monday. I'd waited at least 2 months to start, and it had hit the hip pocket hard because I'd been waiting, but the benefits of this job long-term were massive. And I heard a knock at the door. So this is on the Friday, just before the Monday. So I've gone out, and I seen two plainclothes individuals there who I immediately recognised as detectives.
Gentlemen.
And I said, good morning.
What do I owe the pleasure?
Yeah, I said, do you need access to the property? Is there something wrong down here? Is something? And I've gone out there, and he's just pulled out from his back pocket a piece of paper. And he goes, are you Stuart Whitby? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, we got a warrant for your extradition to New South Wales. And I near passed out. I must have been 3 shades of green and purple, because I literally had to hold on to the couch when I went back inside.
What was the warrant for?
It was a fail to appear and an accessory before the fact of offence when I can't even remember how old I was, maybe 18.
Fuck.
And I could not believe it.
And how long did they put you back in for?
8 months through COVID. I thought it was the end of the world. I arrived in Sydney with the bushfires, and all Sydney was all smoked out.
This is last year.
Yeah.
So you did fucking hell. So you did your 16 years and 9 months, which were fucked.
Yep.
You got out. You finally landed a permanent job.
Well, we was on the path too. Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like you're all but.
Yeah.
And then they lock you away for 8 months. Now, that 8 months must have felt just about as long as those 16 years, right? Like it would have been awful.
Well, I was in the watch house and up north, and I was talking to the duty lawyer and stuff, and they said, if you challenge this, you'll go into custody in Queensland again. It could be drawn out. You could wind up here for months. And I just thought, you know what, stuff it. I'll go to New South. I'll sort it out. It looks like it's inevitable. The judge actually seemed in favour of me. he didn't appreciate what was happening.
What a
here.
fuck around it.
Yeah, he was not happy about what was happening with me, but he knew it was a legal warrant, and he expressed such things. And they had a couple of typos even on their document, and he made them go away and fix it and come back the next day. So I knew he wasn't happy about it, and I definitely wasn't happy about it. So
God, I wouldn't imagine.
But what was the expectation? Like, how long did you think you were going away for?
I actually thought I was going to go to Sydney and I'd be out within a day, 2 days.
Right.
Because this is what I believe.
Because it was a nothing sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, and I'd contacted New South Wales about this matter while I was in custody in Queensland, and because of the longevity in Queensland, and New South Wales said, well, we don't want you. And but apparently there was a warrant that it was
circulating.
So
To think that they'd pick that up and be like, let's go fucking nab this bloke. I wonder how they got how do they know you were there?
Well, I don't know why they didn't get me the day I was released in Queensland. It
Oh,
would have been
imagine.
a whole lot better.
Oh, imagine.
Worse but better.
Fuck.
Yeah. Maybe I could have dealt with it at the time. I don't know. But
Oh.
And obviously there's no like,
yeah.
yeah. And they're not just going to be like, oh, they're not going to call up Queensland like from Sydney and be like, oh, that just keep that Whitby in there for an extra 8 months for us, can you? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, while you're already, fuck.
It
That's
just
insane.
doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, I mean, I'm not a fucking legal person, but it doesn't make a whole lot aren't you? No, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, does it, to be like, you got to do an extra 8 months for this other thing. It's just like, fuck.
Well,
What more do you want from me?
it wound up being 8 months because the border was closed and courts
Oh, you
weren't-
couldn't get back. Yeah, right.
because of the COVID thing. So they flew me from up north to Brisbane, handcuffs, and then from Brisbane, direct flight to Sydney. And I remember flying into Sydney Harbour thinking over the last few years, I'd love to go back there for a holiday and just see something nice. And there's the Harbour Bridge and there's the Opera House.
And you're in handcuffs.
And I'm in handcuffs. And
Mate.
What? And so, okay, fuck. What's it like traveling in handcuffs?
well, everyone looks at you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what's like?
It's not comfortable.
No,
It's
no.
not comfortable.
Yeah, obviously, but I want to know obviously it's not comfortable, but fuck, you know what I mean?
They probably just wrap a blanket over your hands, don't they?
No, I just had the cuffs there, and everyone that walks on the plane and off the plane has another look at you, and it's like,
Yeah, like you
know.
feel like probably like a fucking dog.
Yeah, and I had to get up and go to the toilet and shuffle along with handcuffs on, and
You'd be no chance of fucking getting the fucking life jacket over your head and blowing the fucking whistle for extra inflation.
you'd be in trouble.
Yeah. So where did you do your 8 months?
Well, I first went to Silverwater,
Yeah, righto.
and wow, that was tough.
Gee, Silverwater sounds like a really bougie fucking.
No, it's not.
I know, but it sounds, isn't it? Silverwater sounds
Definitely
like
not.
It sounds
I know.
great.
It
but
sounds like a nice.
Don't be fooled.
Yeah.
don't be
Residential area.
fooled. Yeah, it's a rough place.
Is it
and,
rougher than Capricornia?
Oh, absolutely. It's
Wow.
it's crazy.
Silverwater, was that where Chopper was? Is it Silverwater?
Oh, couldn't tell you.
Because I'm trying to think of that Underbelly series, but anyway, I digress.
Yeah,
So-
no, it was tough.
So Silverwater, why was it so tough?
Just because it's the major remand centre, reception centre. Everyone's coming off drugs.
Oh, it's remand.
and it's
righto.
all divvied up because of gangs. This group here, that group there, this ethnicity here, that kind of people there. So it's just.
And so where did they throw you?
I wound up in 13 unit down the back, and it was probably the toughest unit there, one of the toughest units there.
And your 17 years sort of prior, or that you've done, does that matter? Like, is there any sort of...
No, and that's the funny thing,
Yeah.
because I felt that within myself. So walking around there and being,
A nobody again.
yeah, I felt like that, but people were looking at me and sort of, thinking and assuming that I was someone that, once again, because I suppose I immediately adopted.
Well, you know how it rolls. You know
Yeah.
exactly what to do and
Yeah.
what not to do, and how it all works.
So I quickly fell back into that role and started training every day. And then me doing push-ups down the end of the yard. In the end, there was like 8 of us doing push-ups every day. And then other people were just flocking to me.
You started the push-up.
Yeah.
Gang.
And packed the church out
Yeah,
within a
right.
week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was not one spare seat in there.
Oh, so they were just drawn to you.
Yeah, I said to everyone there, "You coming to church this Sunday? It's great. Let's get out of it."
So do you preach and stuff, do you?
Look, I have at times, but no, I'm not preaching in a church or anything, and
Yeah.
I haven't had the opportunity to share my faith really in recent times. But I've spoken in a couple of churches, and they, it went down pretty good.
It must be a pretty powerful sort of a feeling for you, to go back in there like that, not, fuck, drop your lip and be like, fuck, poor me again, but you're like, righto, I can help people in here now for 8 months while I'm away and sort of make a really positive impact, mate. That's like a fucking powerful thing to do.
I had an Afghanistan war veteran, an Aussie, come straight up to me and start sharing his problems, and I got him training with me, and I believe counselling him helped him through that time, and also some other individuals. A young fella from the UK wound up and come unstuck. Getting him training and then coming to church gave him some routine quickly, and just things like this.
Yeah, right. And so that in that 8-month period, you just trained your ass off. You had a positive impact on those around you. Did that time go? I mean, obviously it didn't go quickly, but
yeah, it went in the blink of an eye. Weight wise, I lost like 20 kilo. Training again, just went straight
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. In a good way, just training hard again, and was lucky to have a girlfriend drive down there on 3 occasions and visit me. Like drive the 10 hours to come and see me.
Yeah, wow. And then you went. Where did you go from Silverwater?
I went to Musselbrook, which is a farm, a work farm, and I was building demountable sort of offices, houses there.
In terms of prisons, that probably sounds like, farm prisons sound like the better end of the stick.
Oh yeah, everyone there was playing the game, so to speak, behaving pretty much, and you would have to do something pretty reckless to come unstuck there.
So you've come out. Are you expecting this to happen again? Is there an expectation that they could rock up to your door at any time and lock you up again, or do you feel like now it's done?
No, there's no expectation of that. I'm just, I suppose, like I am employed at the moment. I've got an employment future, a job to go back to, but it's not the permanent thing. It's not the be-all, end-all of me, and I'm just hoping to crack it.
Oh, you still, mate, well, and this is because we should really touch on this life after prison, because there's so many things to touch on, like, reintegration back into society, that sort of stuff. But, like, your view, like, how has your view of yourself changed throughout your life? How has your view of who you are as a person changed in that time?
Well, I've learnt to forgive myself. I haven't made the right decisions at times, but I do forgive myself. I don't make excuses for what I've done. I don't water things down. Obviously, the stuff that I've been through, I can't really share with anyone. It's just too full on. You know what I mean? So I don't really get the chance to really tell people what I've been through or experienced.
As in full on for you to go through it again?
Yeah.
Or just the fact of the matter that it's such full on
for them to hear it.
Yeah, both sides, I guess, isn't it?
I think more that side these days.
Yep.
Because it would take a bit to rock me. But I think that, so I don't really get to talk. And if I do share at times, I find that for the most part it's just taken as a grain of salt, which I don't particularly like, but that's how people are, but not always, I have got a small group of friends and I'm well respected and I will respect them. And, they say at the end of your life, if you can count some friends on just one hand, then you've done really well. Well, that's how it is for me too.
And are they friends that you had before you went away?
No, they're all new friends.
New friends?
Yeah.
Okay, and so do you have anyone from your previous life that is still a friend now, an acquaintance or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And family, I guess, as well?
Yeah, 2 people that I went to primary school with way back in the day. I'm still friends with them. So, yeah, one's got a concrete business and the other one works in central Queensland, and, yeah, I still know them.
So your life before you went away, your relationships... so there's a couple of relationships that have remained. Obviously, your family has changed, and you've lost family in that time. So you haven't carried too much of that previous life through now, I suppose. Have you?
No, not at all. I mean, I talk to my mum occasionally. I mean, I haven't had a lot to do with her for such a long time. She's like, you would say, estranged in a way. And my younger sister's the same. She's got her family and children and all them. But my younger brother and myself, we talk all the time. We communicate like weekly. and encourage one another. And
Has your mother like forgiven you or for what's happened? Like, does she wear any of that for what happened to you? Like, does she wear any of that?
No, she doesn't believe that she really played any sort of negative part in anything, like verbally outside, but maybe on the inside she thinks differently. But you know, she's my mum. I love her. I always will. But I don't agree with the way I was treated as a child, as a kid, and that's just the way that it is.
Have you spoken to her about that stuff?
Yeah, I had a chat to her about it a few years ago. I said, you know, like, why did you let these things happen to me? And she goes, that didn't happen and this didn't happen. And I'm like, you know, like,
she's blocked it out.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty embarrassed and ashamed in a way, but it's not me that happened. But they sent me on my first day to high school in second-hand shoes and clothes when my dad was an underground coal miner.
How could you not afford? He's probably making good money. How could you not fucking sort me out?
Yeah, because they're drinking and smoking and not giving a shit about their kids. And I mean, when you complimented me on my boots when I come in, I'm like, all my shoes are top of the line, and I think it's because of that. And,
well, it's a nice set of boots.
Yeah, I know. They're comfy. But I'm like, it's just like I tried to say, you know, like, Dad was working in the mines. Like, what excuse do you have? Like, even me just doing shutdowns, I could go up to my partner's kids and just go boom, boom, boom without even trying. Like, why?
Yeah, but I guess what you've been through, your perspective shift, and the other thing as well that comes up a lot about this idea of adulthood being a whole process of undoing or coming to terms with your childhood.
Yeah.
Most adults are just spending their life coming to terms with what the fuck happened in their childhood. And it's hard.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got it.
Everyone I see out there, everyone's got a story to tell. Sorry.
No, you go.
You just took a big inhale.
I was ready to fire one off.
Well, don't forget it. But so, I mean, obviously we feel privileged that you felt comfortable to share your story with us. But you said you don't get an opportunity to tell it as much because it is confronting for a lot of people and that sort of stuff. But is there an element of fear in you that people will judge you for what you've done rather than the person that you are?
I kind of don't think of it along those lines. I think of it as I don't feel they appreciate the gravity of the stories that I tell them. And that to me is, you know, they're not superficial stories. You know, they are life and death battles. And, you know, if someone, you know, you should be able to discern if someone's telling you something pretty serious and important and listen to them. You know, all of us is, you know, trying to help people or listening to someone. I just think it's important to listen and to listen properly, you know, not just pretend you're listening, but to receive what you're hearing, you know, and
listen for the sake of listening rather than thinking about how you're going to respond, what you're going to say back to that.
Yeah, and that's probably why I haven't. You know, you want to talk about some things at times, but
you don't want that to define you, right?
No,
you don't
not
want
at
that.
all.
Yeah. So what do you want? Like, how do you want to be? I suppose remembered, or like who do you want to be? Like when people are introducing you, like who is that person that you want to be introduced as? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting question because my identity today has been like a person that's proactive and pro-social and a hard worker and move forward. And I find that to get the full benefit out of that would probably at some point be going into another industry altogether.
I think not giving you any career advice by any means, but you need to be working with people.
Yeah, well, that's what
you know what I mean.
That's what I learnt about, and that's what I studied.
Yeah,
so
like you need to be working among people and like being that person that's like, because you know, like I've had a couple of shitty weeks. Like, we've both had a couple of fucking shitty weeks.
Yeah.
But, like, this perspective of being able to, like, sit here and talk to you and hear the stuff that you've been through, I'm like, well, fuck. If you can work through that, fuck, we can work through what we've got to work through. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and that's a powerful thing. And not many people are able to possess and have that for other people. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
that's a strong thing.
One of the massive things that I learnt is because some people have heard my story and go, oh, my goodness, man, you've been through
Fucking hell.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I have. But look, your hell's your hell and your hell's your hell. And to an individual, that's all you know. So my story is no bigger than your story, nor bigger than your story. We've all got stories. We're all people. And that's why we all need to care and help one another. And I think that's another positive message that I'd like to get out there to anyone that's struggling with any type of issue. That you know, we always say, oh, there's someone else always doing worse than us. You know, oh, you haven't got it so bad. Look at them. But your reality is your reality. Your pain is your pain. And I think we need to help people in that instance before we start throwing, you'll get over it and it's all good, you know, just brush it off. And, you know, there's someone always worse than you, but there's not, because it's you, it's your life.
And you have to sit in that pain as well. Like, you have to experience it for what it is, you know, and you can't compare pain. Like, it's just, you can't. There's no spectrum where pain or suffering can be compared. And I thought it was interesting when you were talking about, you know, when you want to tell your story or when you want to talk about things and you feel like maybe there's not a level of sincerity sometimes, you know, if people don't truly understand what you've been through. And it did get me to thinking that, well, it's much like war vets who can only share their stories, if at all, with other war vets, or coppers who are all mates with each other, because that life, being a police officer, only other police officers can empathise with that. And same thing with the amount of time that you've done inside and the particular stories that you have. Only other people who have experienced that can truly appreciate how, you know, the gravity of it. And I guess that's probably, you know, the hard part in challenging situations like that. It's about finding your community and finding the support network around you who can get you and who you can show vulnerability with and who you can open up to. And I think that's probably important, well, broadly in life in general, you know what I mean? It's about having that support network around you that you can be yourself around and you can show vulnerability and you can surround yourself with people who you do feel like give a shit. They give a shit about what you got to say, you know?
Yep.
Man, this has been a fucking good podcast. It's been 1 hour and 40 minutes, though.
That's good.
I had no idea how much time had gone.
Go on then.
Mate, yeah, like really, there's probably been there's been a couple of defining moments, well, for both Ed and I individually and collectively throughout this business. I know the day I met Brad Pulicia, who has been, you know, pretty big around our sort of part.
Yep.
That was a huge day for me. That was like a life-changing kind of moment within this business.
Yep.
And I think that day where we met you and that experience that we had right in that moment was probably another one of those for us. Yep. And there's no way we would be able to plan for meeting someone who I'll never forget. I did 17 big ones for murder. I can never get that out of my head. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a changing moment. And, you know, we feel privileged to be able to, you know, have you in here and to be able to share this story, you know, understanding the sensitivity around, you know, what has gone on in your life and that there are other people, you know, whose lives have been affected, but also your life has been affected and you've affected other people's lives within that. So the gravity of the entire experience is massive. And, you know, I'm proud that, you know, we can provide a platform where we can have this conversation and shine a light into those experiences, because the work that we do with Barallan Prison and that little part of our business, the mental health conversation, the idea around forgiveness, around forgiving yourself and forgiving others seems to be, you know, quite a common theme that keeps coming up, as well as the idea of, you know, change in perspective and growth. And no matter what you go through or what you've been through, this is possible for everyone, and that, despite everything that you go through, having a Aboriginal fella come up to you in prison and say you're young and that's why there's hope. And I mean, there's always hope, right?
Yeah, there is always hope, no matter where you're at in your life, no matter your age, your gender. There is always hope. Just do not quit on yourself. And that's what I say to people. Tomorrow is a brand new day. Just like seasons change, not one day is the same as the next. You have to believe that the situation you find yourself in, no matter how bleak it might look, it will change. And that's why I'm here today, to get a message out there, and just don't give up on yourself. Don't quit. There's good that you can do, and we can all make our community and our country a safer place in doing so. And who doesn't want to do good things and feel good and be happy and, go to sleep at night and I help that person.
Feel accomplished,
I did something great today.
I guess there's a big insight there in the fact that, helping other people really is, the positive way forward.
And you have done something great today, Stu, mate. Sharing that story, incredible. Really appreciate it. Dan's pointing. Wants one more thing to say.
Got a book.
Yeah, you got a book coming out. When's that coming out?
Yeah, I've got a book coming out. I'm hoping to have it all wrapped up in about 8 weeks from now. I'm calling it Crazy Hotel. I actually, I didn't even pick the name. I saw it written, scratched into a cell wall. So,
that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, when it comes out, make sure you let us know. Love to share that around, and thanks so much for everything today. I mean, it's incredibly powerful for you to share that story with us, and thousands of people that'll listen to this podcast. Thank you so much, and really look forward to continuing our journey and becoming mates over the next few years. It's bloody awesome.
Oh, it's a privilege to be here. Ed and Dan, and I'm very grateful. And I had to keep myself in check there, speaking about these things for a moment there. I wanted to cry, and
so did I,
and let it all out.
Fuck it.
I still think I might cry yet, but as I said, freedom's what you make of it, and you got to believe, make a difference, because that's the only legacy we have when it's all said and done.
Absolutely. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.
Good stuff, mate.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Fuck. How was that?
Yeah, it was good.
If I stop, I'll die.